Honorable Henry Rotich, Cabinet Secretary, Treasury, who's representing His Excellency Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Willie Bett, Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, Honorable Mwangi Kiunjuri, Cabinet Secretary for Devolution and Planning, Dr. Agnes Kalibata, President, Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, Director General of the Food Agriculture Organization, Mr. Andre Laperial, Executive Director, Global Open Data for Agriculture and Nutrition, Mr. Sanyal Desai, CEO Radical Communications, Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Ambassadors, Principal Secretaries responsible for Agriculture and Nutrition, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow youth, boys and girls, good morning. I'm privileged to represent 4H Kenya, I'm privileged to represent 4H Kenya and the youth in this auspicious conference and exhibition. Agriculture remains a critical contributor to economies and a potential source for millions of new jobs and wealth creation for young people around the world. There has never been a more important time for humanity to unlock that potential than the time we are living in now. In my work, we are exposing young children to the workings of agricultural economies, from as early as 6 years old into their mid-teens. It is important to expose children to agriculture so that they are better prepared to engage in higher margin parts of commodity value chains, where the majority of the jobs are being created. As they grow, they will have a healthy perception of agriculture and the sector and the opportunities it presents for career options and entrepreneurship. We, however, realize that young people are not integrated into these value chains as they should be. We are considered too risky for credit, and this contributes to additional challenges in us accessing important factors of production, such as capital and land. Consequently, the agricultural sector has not in the past attracted young people whose energy and tendency for innovation is critical for agricultural transformation. To my fellow young people, challenges create great opportunities. Young people are a source of iconic innovations in the sector, especially here in Africa. For instance, here in Kenya, we have institutions like iCow, a locally developed technology platform that has placed in the hands of livestock farmers a mobile-based technology to manage insemination, increasing chances for improved productivity at an affordable cost. There are many other examples from around the world, some of which we shall witness at this conference. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like this opportunity to propose 3 concrete actions that we should take moving forward. 1, we as a young people call upon governments to support the creation and propagation of agricultural clubs in our countries to expose children and youth to transformative potential of agriculture. 2, to create opportunities for uptake of innovations by the public sector. Governments and private sector should explore innovative financing for technology and innovation in the sector. In tandem, there is need to ensure that policy environment is favorable for uptake of these innovations. 3, increase investments in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and design education, especially for young women and girls, to catalyze the growth of a strong foundation in innovation, research, and development in the agricultural sector. As young people, we are ready and committed to collaborate with our governments and private sector, and as well as other willing partners, to ensure agriculture benefits both current and future generations. For those who understand Swahili, time for serikali saidia is over. I believe it's time for serikali to saidiane. As I close, I would like to thank the government of Kenya and Gordon for including youth in the conceptualization and organization of all activities and including panels at this conference. I'm particularly delighted to recognize the commitment of His Excellency, the President, in empowering young youth through finance and opportunity. I would like to also recognize the unwavering support of the Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Willie Bett, for ensuring youth are meaningfully engaged through agriculture, through co-creating a youth in agriculture strategy. This, in my view, is a mark of a true intergenerational partnership that will ensure our development progress leaves no one behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Annie Nyaga, 4H Kenya Executive Director. The gentleman I introduce now is the leader of India's most successful exhibition organizers, setting up world-class exhibitions, trade shows, seminars, conferences, and he also cares about causes in animal welfare, environment, health, science, and technology. His being here is not just about business. Let us welcome Mr. Sanyal Desai. Welcome, sir. With a round of applause.
Thank you for the warm words. Honorable Mr. Henry Rotich, Cabinet Secretary, Treasury. Honorable Mr. Willie Bett, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. Honorable Mr. Mongi, Cabinet Secretary for Devolution and Planning. President Godan, other dignitaries on the dais, various ministers from different countries, ambassadors, all the principal secretary of the Department of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, friends from media, exhibitors, visitors, and the people of Kenya. Namaste. I'm from India, and I belong to the state where our Prime Minister was the Chief Minister for 13 years. Our state is called Gujarat. And we are here with Agritec Africa. As you all know that we are partnering Agritec Africa exhibition with the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries since 2014. This is our 4th edition, and I use this platform to thank the government of Kenya and particularly Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries for their continuous support. Today, where we are and we started, the journey has been fantastic. I would also like to thank the Ministry and the Government of Kenya and the Gordon for considering us to club Gordon Ministerial Conference along with Agritec Africa exhibition. If you see the history of Agritec Africa, starting from 2014 to 2016, I think we are growing almost phenomenal growth in every year. This year we have about 150 exhibitors from 21 countries across the globe. And we are trying to bring best of the best technology, innovation, which is suitable for the farmers of Kenya and this African continent. And more or less we are successful. The journey is long, but the kind of response we are getting from Kenya, the people of Kenya, the farmers of Kenya, the agriculture stakeholders of Kenya, and especially from the ministry, I think we have a long way to go. And in the coming years, with this kind of tie-up, I think we will have one of the best prime exhibition of the world. That is our motto in coming years. What is so special about this 4th edition of Agritec Africa is we have been doing last 3 editions with a lot of agriculture technology about farm implements, tractors, agrochemicals, fertilizer. This year we added from the dairy, livestock and poultry segment also. We are also having 30 companies from different parts of the world showcasing technology on dairy livestock, because as you know, it is also an important segment along with the agriculture. For the farmers of the world, for the farmers of Kenya, dairy livestock is also important. They can generate the extra income out of that. So we are also keeping that in mind, and we are adding a new segment on dairy, livestock and poultry this year. And as far as the other exhibitors are concerned, especially in Agritec implements and agrochemicals, we are bringing the world's best technology, which definitely will helpful for the farmers of Kenya. And it's a low-cost technology also we are bringing for the small stake farmers. And we also have big technology for the big stakeholder farmers also. So we are trying to combine both and bringing the good technology in Kenya. I would like to use this platform before I close. Thank you, people of Kenya. Thank you, farmers of Kenya. And thank you, all the agriculture stakeholders of Kenya, for their continuous support. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Desai. The next gentleman in his career has been a project lead for large private organizations, the United Nations and the World Bank. He has played a senior role in reforms at the WHO and UNICEF. He's an expert in international development and the first executive director at the Global Open Data for Agriculture and Nutrition, GODAN. Please help me welcome Mr. André Laperrière.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister Bet, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, friends, it's a true privilege and humbling to be here today in this very historical moment in this most important ceremony. For those that are less familiar with GODAN, we're a partnership of more than 500 partners or associations of partners across the world, anywhere from Argentina to Australia, all united by one thing, this belief that by working together, we're stronger. By putting our ideas together, we can generate better ideas, be more creative, innovate more and better, ultimately for the well-being of all of our citizens. This common belief, this common determination, this quest for innovation and progress is what I see in this room today. That's the thing that makes me most happy, and I once again thank Minister Bet for organizing, leading this. Of course, the road to progress may seem long and hard sometimes. There are so many obstacles ahead of us. We often hear about the negative impact of climate change, of the exploding demographics, which is putting more pressure on us in figuring out ways to feed all these people that we have today and the 3 billion more that are coming within the next generation. Many talk about the scarcity of water, which is becoming a real burning problem now, the impact that all these factors have on crops, on agriculture, how difficult it's making it to be. The fact that fish resources are already largely fully exploited, in some cases overexploited. But yet, not all is doom and gloom. As I often say, behind any difficulty lies an opportunity if we can only capture it. And this opportunity today lies a lot with data. In my in my lifetime, I was very fortunate, I feel. I lived through 3 technological revolutions, which you lived through those as well. Maybe you didn't visualize it the way some do. First revolution was the internet, because it connected the whole world together. The second revolution was the smartphones, the intelligent phones that all of you have probably today. This is what brought the internet to your hand. The next revolution is the one that empowers you to use these to their maximum capacity, and it has to do with data. There's a lot of data floating around today, and there's even more than at any point in time. I just want you to visualize how much data there is. That's a word I learned very recently. Every day, as it goes, the world generates 5 quintillion worth of data. I don't know what a quintillion is. You know, millions, billions, trillions. Beyond that is quadrillions and then quintillions. Another way to visualize it is that if you were to put all this data on these CD-ROMs that are now gradually disappearing, remember the CD-ROMs? If you put all of this data that the world generates in one single day, every day on CD-ROMs, and you make a pile of those, the pile would be about the height of the Eiffel Tower. So there's no shortage of data, but maybe there's a shortage of ways to use it and make it make sense, especially to the farmers, those that could benefit most, and help the world, help us achieve this food security problem that we have ahead of us. So that's our challenge. That's a challenge that Minister Bet has put in front of all of us. I took the freedom of rephrasing your challenge, if you allow me, but I understand your question being, Can we, us here today, can we together generate the high-level political support that is required to ensure availability, accessibility, and usability of relevant data for enhanced agricultural planning and decision-making in the Global South? Can we? As somebody said before, yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Laperriere. The next lady I introduce is with an organization that ensures food, secure and prosperous Africa, working along with partners. They primarily focus on productivity and livelihoods of millions of smallholder farmers. Arguably, she was one of the most successful agriculture ministers in sub-Saharan Africa when she was Minister of Agriculture in Rwanda. She's shaking her head. Please help me welcome the President of AGRA, Dr. Agnes Kalibata.
Thank you for that introduction, but I think it's dated. Yeah. Your Excellency, our chief guest, Honorable Minister of Agriculture, our host today, Honorable Ministers here present, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. We are, as the President of AGRAM, extremely honored and excited to be at this conference to talk about the value of data in agriculture and nutrition. I also wanted to take the opportunity, because it's the first of its kind public gathering I've been at that brings us all together, to thank His Excellency the President when last year at the African Green Revolution Forum, he called for measures across the continent in what we called a scorecard, an agricultural scorecard, where we would be able to track the kind of progress we want to see. The President also made a commitment to agriculture, to youth and agriculture. He made a $200 million commitment, which I know, honorable ministers, that you're tracking and following up and actually making a reality. I just wanted to make a linkage for you on how data and investments in ICT makes this a reality. In 2013, when I was in Rwanda, we actually launched and had a huge meeting on ICT for agriculture. It was a continental meeting. I was like, when it's a continental meeting and nearly every person I meet in the corridor is a Kenyan. So, I started checking and asking myself, what's going on? So that's when I discovered that actually the government of Kenya has the biggest infrastructure in ICT of any country on this continent. That huge investment actually makes Kenya. So let me just tell you that a recent report from the State of the Internet ranks Kenya 14 out of 130 countries in terms of connectivity, making Kenyan citizens having better access than Americans, than Taiwanese, than Irish people, and then actually than Sweden. So, Honorable Minister of Finance, congratulations to your government for the investments you're making in ICT. So it was no surprise to me then, finding all this and discovering all this, that actually Kenyan youth are taking advantage of the existence of a diverse ICT system to create solutions and ideas that can go to scale. I also just wanted to mention that from that perspective, AGRA is encouraging all of us in the public space, but also in the private space. It's a matter of time that we actually work with institutions, work with farmers, smallholder farmers, work with all sorts of people out there. We need to make this data available. There's a lot of data there. We need to put it in the open domain so that it can be used. I think more than worry about sitting on data, we need to worry about the kind of products we need to develop to use this data and stay ahead of everybody else, because it's going to be a matter of time. In less than 3 years, I can actually see that this data is going to be available anyway. So if you have it, push it in the open and just worry about the kind of products that people make out of it and how you capitalize on that other than sitting on data. Let me tell you how at AGRA we are using the availability of data. Right now we are working with a number of institutions in Kenya, and we are promoting financial savings for farmers so that they can save for inputs. We are taking advantage of all the tractors you saw out there and promoting products that allow farmers from where they are to actually hire a tractor just the Uber way and be able to track what is going on. So I really think that there are huge opportunities here, and every time we have an opportunity to provide the coordinate of a farmer, to provide an opportunity for that farmer to link to the rest of the world, it makes it easy for our governments to invest, because infrastructure challenges that currently prevent connectivity to farmers kind of really go away. But also it gives us an opportunity to start building new solutions to reach communities. I mean, there's a new solution now in health, as you have seen, that is making it easy for mothers to access health services without moving from their villages. So let's connect these people to the rest of the world. Let's give them the opportunity. And let's give our young people the opportunity to use the available data to actually be creative. So it's a win-win for everybody. And as an institution, as AGRA, we are extremely excited to the opportunities to provide for us to link smallholder farmers to input systems, to markets, but also to all sorts of services, and to connect young people to the agricultural sector in a new way. So thank you again for this opportunity to speak to this audience, and congratulations for this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kalibata. Representing the Office of the Director General, FAO in Rome, is the Senior Statistician and Team Leader, Economic Statistics, Statistics Division, Economic and Social Development Department at FAO. FAO, as you may or may not know, is the UN agency that leads international efforts to defeat hunger by achieving food security for all. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Sangita Dubey.
Your Excellencies and Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, honored and distinguished fellow guests, colleagues and friends. It is with great pleasure that I participate in this Ministerial Conference on Global Open Data for Agriculture and Nutrition and the 4th Agritec Africa Exhibition on behalf of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. To the Honorable Willie Bett, Kenya's Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, I take this opportunity to congratulate the Government of Kenya, and particularly the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, for accepting the challenge to champion the principles of collaboration and use of open data for agriculture and nutrition within the G77 in China, and for hosting this ministerial conference. To Godan, my congratulations for continuing to successfully move forward on this important area of work. I'd like also to convey to all of you both the best wishes and the regrets of my Director General, Jose Graziano da Silva, who was unable to attend this important event in person due to prior commitments he could not reschedule. On his behalf, I would also like to say that FAO is proud to partner with the Government of Kenya in preparation of this ministerial conference, and we remain committed to support the follow-up of the outcomes of the conference in line with our technical capacity. Indeed, Article 1 of the FAO Constitution requires the organization shall collect, analyze, interpret, and disseminate information related to nutrition, food, and agriculture. And in this constitution, the term agriculture is taken in its broad sense to include fisheries, marine products, forestry, and primary forest products. A comment was made over 70 years ago in the 1945 FAO conference that remains just as relevant today. If FAO is to carry out its work successfully, it will need to know where and why hunger and malnutrition exist, what forms they take, and how widespread they are. Such data will serve as a basis for making plans, determining the efficacy of measures used, and measuring progress from time to time. Even 70 years ago, the importance of data as an evidence base for effective policy making was understood. During this conference, there are three important issues that we need to address. When we talk about data, what data? And I believe that's a discussion that will occur tomorrow in one of the panel sessions. When we talk about open data, let's not forget that it's about use, access, and awareness. And most importantly, the collaboration and coordination needed to make data useful and used. FAO recognizes the importance of statistical systems that provide and improve access to basic data and information necessary for policy and investment decision-making. We can talk about why this is important, but I know I'm already speaking to an audience of the converted. The people here today all understand the value of data. The challenge we face is the following. When given a choice between making an investment to feed the hungry or collecting data on hunger, where do we choose to put our money? When we're making the choice between supporting smallholders in sustainable agricultural practices versus collecting data on this topic, the investment choice also seems obvious. The challenge for us is in convincing other policymakers why the investment in data also matters. And unless we're able to make that argument, the underinvestment in data will continue. But it's a false choice. Better data helps target better policies. It makes us use our investments more wisely. The absence of evidence base in policymaking is akin to throwing a dart on a target in a room without light. As the evidence improves, we get light. Open data gives us a possibility of throwing that dart on a target we can see clearly, with reduced effort, with greater success. Let me give you some concrete examples. A $1 million investment in improving the consumer price index in one country led to $100 million in savings within a matter of a few years in terms of allocating more effectively and more efficiently monetary policy, fiscal policy, and social benefits, including pensions and child benefits. In the realm of agriculture, we have the challenge to do the same, to better use the evidence base we have to make better decisions. In this area, FAO is the acknowledged leader in the compilation and dissemination of globally comparable national data on food and agricultural statistics. FAOStat is one of our largest statistical repositories, and it provides free access to food and agriculture data for over 245 countries and territories, from 1961 to the most recent year available. With over 3 million hits annually, we continually introduce improvements in data quality and the user interface in order to better serve our data users. And in recognition of this role, FAO is now custodian agency for 21 of the 232 SDG indicators, covering 6 of the SDG goals. To ensure that national data are high quality and comparable, FAO also develops, in partnerships with country experts, the international methodologies, platforms, and standards for data collection, compilation, and dissemination. And this year, we're working to deliver e-learning materials related to the SDG indicators for which we are the custodian agencies. These SDGs and the underlying data needs, however, are challenges that countries face, particularly in the context of leaving no one behind, which requires data at subnational levels. That's no mean challenge. However, such data is required in order to have improved policy making and decision making. The ability to provide this high quality and comparable detailed data across time and countries is what makes data relevant. It makes it interoperable and ensures that users are able to compare like to like from different countries and different times, and that data speaks the same language, that we're able to learn from our past and we're able to learn from each other. Open data is important also to make sure that we're able to harness not just our usual partners in policy-based research and policy development, but also partners that we don't anticipate. Let me give you a couple of early examples from the open data movement. For over 30 years, researchers working for NASA were trying to solve a problem using astronomical data without success. When NASA opened up its repository of this astronomical data, within a matter of 3 years, an unknown researcher in the UK solved the problem. Opening data opens us to partners that we don't even know of. GODAN provides one of the momentums and the frameworks to help us make our data open. And it also provides some important success stories in the area of agriculture and nutrition data, ranging from the provision in one country of online land registry systems that serve to improve land rights and land tenure regularization, to the provision of on-time price and quality data to smallholders in order to improve their ability to earn better prices for their products, to the use of data on yield and weather indices to strengthen crop insurance programs and reduce the impact of natural disasters on rural people's incomes. These are some of the successes we know of. There's other successes we don't know of. I encourage you to share those. I'm also happy to share with you that this year, FAO is also embarking on improvements in open data policies. In the Statistics Division of FAO, we've made a commitment to start looking at open data practices and policies at countries and to work with select countries in implementing open data policies. These will take into account the very valid privacy concerns and confidentiality laws that exist and the need for data owners to retain ownership of their data. Both in terms of our mandate and our current work, FAO is in alignment with the GODAN principles of supporting the proactive sharing of open data. The partners that we look at are broader than the partners we've looked at in the past. They're not just within government. They're within civil society organizations and within the private sector. In May of this year, I'm proud to announce that FAO published for the first time its projects on expenditures to the world through the International Aid Transparency Initiative, which boasts over 500 members across the world from both national governments, multilateral associations, and civil society organizations. That data is moving towards making it possible for countries and for organizations, be they donors, recipients, or implementing organizations, to identify what projects are going on, where do they occur, what are the partnerships that can be leveled, where are there gaps in investments. What makes a lot of this possible, as my colleague mentioned earlier, is some of the advances in technology. Courtesy of the internet and courtesy of mobile networks and smartphones, we now have at our fingertips access to data. We can make that data more relevant for individuals, for our individual citizens, smallholders, and families to make their own decisions better. That does require collaboration and cooperation between all these stakeholders, not just governments and policymakers, but international organizations, civil society organizations, individuals themselves. The conference title, Catalyzing Agriculture Transformation for Inclusive Growth, is timely, and the theme, Harnessing the Demographic Dividend Through Investment in Food and Nutrition Data, is in line with this year's United Nations and African Union theme, Harnessing the Demographic Dividend. It's my conviction that the conference will serve as a platform to encourage cooperation across existing agriculture, nutrition, and open data activities, and stakeholders to leverage exactly those collaborations and innovations, both the ones that are anticipated and hoped for, and those that are unforeseen, that will help us solve together long-standing global problems. It does mean that we need to break down our silos, not look at each other as competitors, but look at each other as partners in a shared goal to reduce hunger and improve food security for everyone. In conclusion, I convey again my best wishes to the government of Kenya and GODAN for the success of this important event, and my thanks to all of you for your active participation and support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sangeeta Dubey, representing the Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization. As we draw to the keynote address by our chief guest, the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury, Kenya, Mr. Henry Rotich, it is my honor to welcome the representative of the CES, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Devolution and Planning, Honorable Mwangi Kiunjuri, and that is the Director General of the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, Mr. Zachary Mwangi Chege. Welcome, sir. Could we welcome him, please?
Thank you very much. I'm delivering the speech of the Honorable Minister, Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kiunjuri, Planning and Statistics, Devolution Planning and Statistics, who would not be able to join us this afternoon in this opening session. So, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me join my fellow speakers in welcoming you to Kenya for the Ministerial Conference on Open Data and Nutrition and the 4th Agritec Africa International Exhibition. As you well know, Kenya, just like many countries represented in this conference, signed up the Sustainable Development Goals that galvanized the international community towards ending extreme poverty and leaving no one behind. The 2030 Agenda places premium on agriculture, and specifically goal number 2, which aims to end poverty, hunger, and all forms of malnutrition by the year 2030. It also commits to universal access to safe, nutritious, and sufficient food at all times of the year. Further, goal number 17 notes that achieving the ambitious targets of Agenda 2030 requires a revitalized and enhanced global partnership that brings together governments, civil society, the private sector, the United Nations system, and other actors, and mobilizes all available resources. I'm therefore pleased to note that the global open data for agriculture and nutrition, that is GODON, is one of those partnerships that truly reflects this multi-stakeholders ecosystem in support of developing countries. So, ladies and gentlemen, the 2030 Agenda recognizes the need to use data for decision making, underscoring the importance of quality, accessibility, timely and reliable disaggregated data that helps with the measurement of progress and to ensure that no one is left behind. Further, the member states of the UN system did recognize the crucial role of increased support for strengthening data collection and capacity building, and committed to addressing the data gaps for the targets of Agenda 2030. And these data gaps are especially more pronounced in agriculture, as a majority of our countries in developing countries have not carried out the agriculture census in this round of the last 10 years. We also do suffer from low investment in agriculture statistics and capacity, and this is also further compounded by lack of coordination within the national data ecosystem. Ladies and gentlemen, agriculture and rural statistics in most of our countries is not integrated into the national statistical system. And data produced by different ministries, departments, and agencies, and in some cases, the devolved and the decentralized system is sometimes difficult to coordinate, and this is more so due to lack of standards and the issue of quality. There is also duplication of efforts due to lack of coordination and conflicting of data, and this results into disincentivizing policymakers who needs to make decisions. And as a result of the decline in the quantity and quality of agriculture statistics in many countries across the globe, the global strategy for improving agriculture and rural statistics was adopted in 2010 at the meeting of the United Nations Statistics Commission in New York. The global strategy is a framework for improving agriculture statistics to enable countries to meet emerging data needs for policy making, food security, research, among other needs. The adoption of the action plan for Africa on the global strategy has encouraged many developing countries to come up with a strategy, that is a strategic plans for agriculture and rural statistics, SPARS, which are to be integrated into the respective national strategy for the development of statistics, the NSDSs. SPARS is aimed at enhancing coordination of statistical activities within the agriculture and rural sectors. And in Kenya, we have developed a strategic plan for agriculture and rural statistics, which is expected to become a mechanism for consultation between government and development partners and the other partners on improvement and also on the support of agriculture and nutrition statistics. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is now widely acknowledged that effective use of technology brings down the cost of producing statistics, as well as easing data collection, capture, processing, analysis, and dissemination. And Kenya has not been left behind in the application of technology in statistical work. The country adopted the use of computers in its statistical operations by early 1990s and was among the first African countries to capture the population and housing census data using the scanning technology in 1999. And this subsequently led to improvement in the timeliness of the release of the census results. The country has since intensified the use of technology in statistical activities. This is, however, not to say that the country has managed to exploit all the available technology to ease the operations and cost of statistical activities. The evolution of ICT and its application has brought about many potential data sources. For instance, the telecommunication network providers. There's a lot of also data in the financial institutions and the retail trade chain, where we talk about the issues to do with the big data. Kenya is alive to these facts and will continue harnessing modern technology in the production and management of official statistics. It's therefore my belief that this conference will discuss and propose solutions on how best data can be managed under the national statistical system for the benefit of all of us. Finally, our chief guest, ladies and gentlemen, I'm confident that with these joint efforts, we can mobilize the necessary resources for a successful data revolution in the world. So I want to thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. With your permission, our chief guest, may I recognize Mr. Francis Stefan Matango of the Congo Brazzaville, and also present from the United Nations Office for South to South Cooperation, Joshua Gimba, who is the Policy and Research Analyst, Division for Policy and United Nations Affairs. And a gentleman you may be familiar with is the Principal Secretary, State Department for Fisheries and the Blue Economy, Professor Misheni Japhet Ntiba. And also to carry on with the proceedings this afternoon, I'd like to welcome the Principal Secretary, State Department for Livestock at the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, Dr. Andrew K. Tuimur. Welcome, sir. Could we welcome him with a round of applause, please?
The Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury, Henry Rotich, who is representing His Excellency the President today. The Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Blue Economy. The representative of the Minister for Cabinet Secretary for Devolution and Planning. Andre from the CEO, the President of Godan, Mr. Desai from the Agritec exhibition, Agnes from Agra, my colleagues the other ministers from various countries in Africa, my colleagues, principal secretaries who are present, the FAO Director General, represented by Dr. Sangita Dube, Annie Nyaga, the CEO of 4H, the guests who are invited, all other dignitaries and invited guests, please let me say good morning, or is it good afternoon? Good afternoon. I stand here representing my colleagues, the principal secretaries for agriculture, who is away, Richard Lesiampe, and my other colleague, the principal secretary for fisheries and blue economy, Professor Michenin Tiba, who is here with us. And I want to start by welcoming all of you to Kenya. Agnes has told us a lot about ICT in Kenya, but there are so many other exciting things in Kenya. Right now we are facing an election in the next 2 months, so we are living in exciting times. That's why the president is not here. So we ask for your prayers as we face the election in the next few months. So today's theme, harnessing demographic dividends for investment through agriculture and nutrition, and the global open data for agriculture and nutrition, is actually a very, very significant day for us, because data is very important. And I think the speakers who have spoken here have emphasized the importance of data for various decision making and all that we need to do, and I need not emphasize that. As a ministry and the cabinet secretary, I'm sure will emphasize this, we are very, very concerned about data, which is very critical for us in terms of decision making in agriculture, particularly in this during these times when this region of Africa has been ravaged by droughts. We now have the armyworm also coming in, and many other things. So data is very critical for us to make many, many decisions. So this conference here today, this Ministerial Conference, has come at the right time and at the right place for us to deliberate in the next 2 days on how we can use data for various decisions. So I'm not going to really talk a lot. My duty today is to actually welcome the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, who will give his keynote speech before welcoming our guest today. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries.
Our chief guest, my colleague, Honorable Rotich, the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury, representing our President, Uhuru Kenyatta. Allow me to say, Excellencies, distinguished guests, fellow colleague ministers from Africa and outside Africa, our sponsors, Andre from Gordon, our representative of Agritec. For me, today is very great indeed, because I'm the host of this conference. When we decided to be the champions of Gordon for the South-South global countries, it was a big decision. But the decision to host this conference while we were in New York last year was even bigger. And I'm very delighted today to see we have pulled it, and that is why you are all here today. For that, I want to say welcome to all of you, and to tell you it gives me great pleasure to address this historic occasion of the first ever Ministerial Conference on the Global Open Data for Agriculture and Nutrition. and also the 4th Agritec Africa International Exhibition. I would like to thank the honorable ministers, the high-level delegates, members of the diplomatic corps, civil society, academia, the youth, for availing their time to join us in Kenya for this important conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, the Kenyan Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries mission is to improve livelihoods of Kenyans by ensuring food and nutrition security through creation of an enabling environment and ensuring sustainable natural resources. The fulfillment of this mission requires data for information, and action is simply indispensable if we are to achieve the sustainable development goals and lift our populations from poverty. Creating a culture of usage of data for evidence-based decision-making and empowering the people, especially on matters of food and nutrition, is no longer an issue of political will, but a rational developmental choice. This is especially important as our region has been experiencing severe drought and food shortages, leading to displacements, malnutrition, and other impacts of scarcity. Agriculture accounts for over 70% of opportunity for employment and livelihoods in the global south that support multiple sectors critical to economic growth and poverty reduction. A special feature of African agriculture in comparison to the rest of the world is that the sector has continued to absorb a large proportion of the working population and will have to continue doing so since a very large number of young people will be steadily entering the labor market on an annual basis. It is estimated that by the year 2025, about 330 million young Africans will have entered the labor market. Our ability to ensure that this population is meaningfully engaged in agricultural value chains will depend on how we harness data for decision-making and forecasting. Agriculture holds the key to unlocking the benefits of the current economic growth in the global south to benefit the youth. More specifically, agribusiness and agripreneurship is already taking root, where innovative youth on their own are beginning to create new jobs and opportunities for employment. These initiatives have been largely self-driven and require government and private sector support if they are to be scaled up to meet the current challenges. It is therefore my hope that our deliberations will address these challenges faced by young people, especially those that are related to the financial support and uptake of innovations. Populations in the global south are increasingly exposed to natural hazards such as drought, as currently being experienced. These are threats to the livelihoods of vulnerable populations and also to the achievements of the aspirations of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Agricultural growth and comprehensive food and nutrition security cannot be attained without increasing the resilience of vulnerable livelihoods to disasters and crises, which will be best managed through data. The use of data for decision-making for agricultural growth remains elusive. This is partly because available data remains largely inaccessible to players across the agricultural value chains, including farmers, processors, traders, and consumers. This use is also predicated on data being open, accessible, and usable. Its availability must also be coupled with data literacy if the data revolution is to leave no one behind. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya therefore takes pride in championing open data for agriculture and nutrition in the global south, which reaffirms our commitment to strengthening international cooperation to address the persistent challenges related to sustainable agriculture in developing countries. Let me reiterate that sustainable agriculture can only be achieved with a broad alliance of people, government, civil society, and the private sector, working together to build a world that is food secure without hunger and malnutrition. In this regard, I am pleased to acknowledge the opportunities created by CODAN network, which is a true reflection of South-South cooperation and North-South collaboration, as a means for building capacity, technology transfer, and knowledge sharing. Such engagements can begin to provide capabilities for collectively addressing critical data gaps in food security and nutrition. The government of Kenya commits to take lead in creating an enabling environment for food and nutrition data generators and users, including private sector, civil society, academia, youth, farmers, communities, and development partners to harness their collective capabilities and synergy required for achieving the aspirations of CODAN. It is therefore my belief that the Secretariat of the Global Open Data on Agriculture and Nutrition will prioritize their support to countries participating in the conference by availing capacity and their network capabilities. As the first one of its kind, this conference presents an opportunity to move beyond challenges and constructively engage in progressive conversations on how open data can be catalyzed for inclusive economic growth that leaves no one behind. As a country, Kenya would not have been much proud, not only to host, but with the content and expected impacts from the outcome of this conference. And as I end, I would want once again to ask all of us that it is time for us to engage very seriously on issues data, especially in the area of agriculture, and especially at this point in time when climate change is becoming real. Data is going to help us build some resilience against the crisis as far as climate is concerned. It is going to help us build or to de-risk some of the activities we undertake in agriculture. Agriculture has been termed as one of the risk areas to invest in. And the data, especially climatic data, is going to help us in de-risking the area of agriculture. Financing in agriculture has slowed down because of the information available in the area. And the minute we get all the information, in terms of investment, we are going to have an increased investment in the area. In terms of insurance, insurance will de-risk a lot in the area of agriculture owing to the data which we have. I therefore look forward to engaging with you during the incredible line of sessions and the margins of the conference on areas of interest and collaboration. And as we take part in this conference, I also welcome you to spend a little bit more time in this country because there are more exciting areas to visit, including the national parks, which is a walking distance from the city. Nairobi is the only city in the world with a national park in the middle of it. And I would also say, if you had come a little bit earlier, you would also view some of the lions through the windows of your hotels. And so you are not only in an agricultural country, but in a country where diversity is evident. Thank you very much and welcome, and let us enjoy our conference. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to take this opportunity to welcome our chief guest, Honorable Rotich, who is representing our head of state. Thank you.
My colleague, CS Agriculture, Honorable Willie Bates, Honorable Ministers from various countries present here today, distinguished delegates, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First, let me convey the apologies of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, who would have very much liked to be here today for this important conference. But due to the other pressing commitments, he has asked me to preside over this, or the opening of this important conference. Therefore, I will right away read his remarks. I would like to welcome you all to Kenya for the Global Open Data for Agriculture and Nutrition Conference, which will be held alongside the 4th Agritec Africa International Exhibition in Nairobi for the next 3 days. The hosting of this event comes at a time when Kenya and the region is coming out of a severe drought and food scarcity within the context of a climate change, making it even more poignant that we are talking about data for decision making and action for our collective resilience and futures. Ladies and gentlemen, agriculture is the backbone of most economies of the world and a main source of livelihood in the developing world. It accounts for 63% of rural household income in Africa, 62% in Asia, and 56% in Latin America. Agriculture has tremendous potential for lifting economies out of poverty, create employment for youth across its value chain, catalyze improvements in nutrition, and deliver better health outcomes. Use of reliable agricultural data for planning, decision-making, and informed actions is critical in transforming the agricultural sector. Despite remarkable achievements in the sector, investments in technology, climate-smart agriculture, data production, and access by farmers remain a challenge. It is my understanding that the Gordon Conference and the 4th Agritec Africa International Exhibition will seek to address these challenges by convening policymakers, innovators, researchers, multilateral institutions, private sector, and students' organizations to think creatively and innovate solutions around access to data for agriculture and nutrition for all. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya joined the Gordon community at the margins of the Finance for Development in the run-up to the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals. You also will recall that Kenya played a key role in the development of the Agenda 2030 that seeks to end extreme poverty and leave no one behind. Kenya, as a country that depends on agriculture, therefore considers open data for agriculture a critical component of our national development agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, we firmly believe our entry into Gordon will enable us to access important data sets being held by the G7 countries that are critical for the informational aspects of our economy. It is therefore gratifying, and as evidenced by this meeting, that the Gordon community is growing rapidly, currently with more than 530 partners from national governments, non-governmental, international and private sector organizations. It is my hope that countries, especially from the global south, will join Kenya in ensuring our nations benefit from this vibrant network. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Agriculture has been modernizing in light of the demands of a growing population and challenges related to climate. The ravages of human activity and nature demand smart solutions that are data-driven to inform food production and resilience. The ministry has a robust market information system to inform farmer prices, and has been working on agricultural information system that enables farmers to access insurance information by location. Such systems will benefit immensely from the Gordon network, data and analytics capacity that may be brought to bear for the benefit of farmers. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot overemphasize that countries in the global south require accurate, timely, and reliable data that is openly available and accessible for their developmental decision-making. Our planning must be informed if we are to remain competitive in the agricultural industry, create new jobs for our youth, and secure our food supplies for a growing population. Ladies and gentlemen, by hosting the Gordon Conference in Nairobi, Kenya, in hosting the Gordon Conference in Nairobi, Kenya is taking the lead as requested by the Gordon Summit held in 2016 to increase access and the use of such data by developing countries as a key resource in fulfilling their common visions of agricultural growth and transformation. We hope that this conference will propose policies that improve coordination of data for agriculture and nutrition across governments, private sector, and academia in the global south. To also provide a platform for peer learning, share of expertise and practices on proven success on the use of quality data and standards on agriculture and nutrition. Let me also encourage you to visit the Agritec Africa International Exhibition to experience the cutting-edge innovations and practices from leading agricultural farms and nations. The future of the developing world and that of the food production must be anchored on a South-South cooperation. The exhibition is a practical example of the potential for innovation that lies within our countries. Ladies and gentlemen, as we embark on a historic two-day conversation, let us remind that this is just the beginning of a long journey in shaping our collective future with some measures of predictability through data. It is my hope that the conference will show up support for increased financial investments in support of data, generate opportunities for building capacity for farmers to use data, improve policy coordination within governments to make data more available and accessible, and finally, provide a clear understanding on how governments can take up innovation by the youth within the public sector. With those few remarks, it's now my pleasure to declare the Gordon and the 4th Agritec Africa International Conference officially opened. As the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture said, I would also like to urge you to spend some time during and after the conference to enjoy our parks, cultural sites, sceneries, and the warm hospitality of the Kenyan people. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, our chief guest. Another round of applause, please, as we come to the end of the opening ceremony. The conference is officially open this afternoon. The first session, Opportunities of Data-Driven Agricultural Growth for Prosperity, beginning at 2 o'clock sharp. We encourage you to be back at that point. Lunch is going to be served at a tent outside the main entrance, and we shall be going for a group photograph right now outside the main entrance. As we go out, may I kindly ask for this order: at the lowest step that we have the speakers that we've listened from this morning and this afternoon, followed on the next level by any other ministers that we have represented, and finally the third level, any permanent secretaries and diplomats and heads of missions, in that order, 1, 2, 3. Right now, thank you very much, our chief guest, for honoring the occasion and being present and for the insights shared. Thank you very much for the representative from, thank you very much, Dr. Willibet, for the coordination and the risk that you took in saying yes to Gordon in Kenya, and the first one being held here. I would like to also thank the representative of the Director General, the representative from the Ministry of Devolution and Planning, Dr. Kalibata, Andre Laperriere, Mr. Senyal Desai, Ms. Annie Nyaga, all ministers and all protocol observed. Thank you. Could I now ask that if we could just stay seated, first allow our chief guest to lead the way for the photograph, and followed by the clusters of individuals that I mentioned. Just for clarity, the speakers will leave first, followed by the ministers and deputy ministers here represented, followed by all the ambassadors and permanent secretaries and heads of missions that are represented. And finally, we can all follow and go to the main entrance, line up for the photograph, and after the photograph, proceed for lunch at the tent that shall be indicated by the ushers. Just in case you're not clear, you're not going to the IEBC food tent because you're not at that conference, aren't you? You go to the Golden tent. Thank you very much. So with your permission.
Well, that concludes the morning session of this meeting here at the Global Agriculture Conference to talk about data and how data can be used in agriculture and how you can use this data to improve the agriculture systems of not just one country, but all the countries in the world, specifically the G77 and China countries. And this session was opened by the Honorable Henry Rotich, the Cabinet Secretary in the National Treasury, who was representing the President, who was supposed to be here to open this conference, but then the President is out touring the country in the campaigns. Now, why this conference is important is because agriculture, when it comes to data, agriculture is actually one of the sectors of the economy that is very rich in terms of data, but then this data is not always readily available. Like, for instance, if you're looking for some specific information like how the food prices have moved in Kenya over a period of 1 week, you wouldn't really know how to find that data or where to go to find that data. Although both the Ministry of Agriculture and the National Bureau of Statistics do collect this data, they don't make it available publicly until when the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics publishes the monthly inflation numbers. So these are some of the issues that will be discussed here today. How do you make this data available so that you enable the policy makers access it easily and be able to come up with the solutions that they need and the policies that they need to come up with? Now, and also besides the data aspect of agriculture, they're also discussing the nutrition aspect of agriculture, because as I said earlier, the definition of food security has been edited to include nutrition, so that when you talk about food security, you don't just say food security, you say food and nutrition security, because it's not enough to just have the food to eat. It is also important to have a balanced diet and nutritious food so that you're also taking care of your health. Now, this meeting is going on for the next 3 days, and in fact, it has been touted as the largest meeting in the world to bring together the global south to discuss data and science and the role of data and science in agriculture, because no such meeting in the world has ever been successful in pulling together 100 meetings and 100 ministers from at least 100 countries to be able to come together and discuss data and science in the context of agriculture. So this particular meeting here has been touted as the biggest in the world in such a context, and it's going to be going on for the next 3 days. That is today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow when it finally concludes. And they're still hoping that the President is going to be able to make time to show up for one of these days to be able to conclude this meeting. Now, Kenya, when you talk about agricultural data in Kenya, as I mentioned, the Ministry of Agriculture has its own set of data, and every day they generate data that includes how the different food prices have sold in the different markets across the country. And then this data is circulated in a mailing list. So if you're not a member of that mailing list, you wouldn't get that kind of information, and you wouldn't even know how to find it. And then the National Bureau of Statistics also has its own separate set of data that they use to collect data that goes into the inflation numbers. But now the point of this meeting is to get these two agencies, the Ministry of Agriculture and the Bureau of Statistics, to coordinate their data such that there's one pool that is available, such as the data that the Food and Agriculture Organization has globally called the FAO Statistics, that collects data from the different FAO countries, different country profiles and different numbers about those countries, and then post them on the FAO Statistics website. So if you're looking for information about Kenya, you just go to the FAO Statistics website and then you click in Kenya, and then it will show you the different data that FAO has about agriculture. But then I should also mention that this data is not updated because the lack of coordination between the various agencies kind of limits how much and how the pace of which this data is shared. But right now they've just taken a quick lunch break, and then they'll be back in the afternoon for more sessions to go into the details of the meeting, whereby they'll be talking about how to leverage on data in the context of agriculture in order to improve agriculture and nutrition and security. And I'll be here for all the 3 days and I'll be keeping you up to date on what is happening. So we'll just take a quick break and then we'll be back in the afternoon.